So you got your pens and paper ready? Because we're going to work on empaths now. I think really the gist of the empathic part is really understanding that there is a lot of energy around us all the time. And it's really obvious in very specific areas as well as our normal everyday life. Those really specific areas are like weddings, funerals, going into hospitals sometimes for some of us. Sometimes for some of us, it's going into antique shops. I can tell you a major story about going into an antique shop, and it only had a one-way path. And I literally was running out the other door by the time I got to the end because there was so much energy from all the artifacts that were in there, because at that time I didn't realize that I had the ability to bubble myself, I guess, if you will. Right. So, as I mentioned, we can really feel the energy. Like we get caught up in that exciting joy when we're at weddings or when we're at, drumming circles or other things. Right. And we also get really connected in and feel very emotional at funerals, at ceremonies of life. And yet we sometimes do not acknowledge that we're getting caught up in the energy of things that are happening on an everyday basis. And an example of that is, I remember being on a trip with my husband, and we were somewhere in, I don't even know where we were. We were quite a distance from our home. And I was really feeling this big anxiety, anxious energy. And I'm not an anxiety, anxious person. And so I reached out energetically, first of all, to see if it was one of two people, because I have two people in my life who do walk in anxiety. One being very close to me, my daughter, and another is my best friend. And when I reached out energetically to my daughter, I really could feel that it wasn't necessarily her. And so I reached out energetically to my best friend, and holy cow, she was off the chart with anxiety in that space. And so I personally took some rescue remedy to bring her energy down into this beautiful space, right? And then I reached out to her and said, "Hey, what's going on? How you doing?" And she goes, "Oh, I'm at this 24-hour mountain bike race." And right away, I knew that she was anxious because of her role as a participant in that. And so I told her that I'd been feeling her and that I took some rescue remedy for her to assist her to calm down. And just hearing my voice, just knowing that I was feeling her, just knowing that I had taken that for her really helped to settle her energy. So it was just really, really beautiful to witness that. So there's that factor, that piece of knowing possibly that the energy that we're feeling is not our own, it's somebody else's. And that's one of the first things that I usually do is if I'm feeling something, I ask, is that mine or is it somebody else's? And if I get that it's somebody else's, then I usually go through this gambit of questions like, okay, is it masculine? Is it feminine? Is it my family? Is it somebody else kind of thing? And just kind of go through these lists of questions that go through all of that. So really kind of recognizing those bits and pieces of it. What yeah, simply asking who it is and not needing to be a specific occasion for sure. I love that. And just kind of reflecting back on what Mary said about the loop, because she's still connecting with that inner child, is she had fun with the little me and she worked up to one loop. Beautiful. Love that. Everything at our own speed. That nobody has to do the everything at once. We can do everything at our own speed. And that's again really recognizing the empathic energy, right? You're in a room full of people right now who are all very, very connected. And sometimes that connection can be a little bit overwhelming. And that's because we're all connected into the energy of everything. So there are actually, at first I thought there was only 7 empaths. And then during one of these events, this Reveal the Incredible You event, an 8th one came up, which was just like a holy wow one. But I'm going to get started with walking you through some of these from a beginning portion of this, the first 7 of them. And I just, of course, realized that I didn't open up one of my documents, so bear with me here. So if you list number one first, that first empath is actually the physical empath. And that's when you can feel the physical pain in somebody's body. For example, if your friend has a headache and you can feel the pain in your head as well. I know for myself, this became really, really evident when I was actually at a basic shaman course. And I'm just going to kind of do a little aside here. I was at that basic shaman course because I thought I needed to learn how to become a shaman. And the reality is when I got there, I realized that I was actually already doing all the things that the gentleman was teaching. So it was remembering the shaman aspects of myself, not learning. And I think that's really important for each of us to understand as well, is that we have the ability to remember versus the stepping into thinking we need to learn everything. Okay. So who here has felt that energy of being a physical empath? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Another example of this. Oh, I was just starting to say, I didn't actually tell you the story, did I? Being at that basic shaman course, um, we did this beautiful practice towards the end of the day. The energy was so high. We've been doing drumming all day, so you could just imagine that this frequency had risen. So instead of just sending us off, and we were all like, ah, with this vibration, he's like, okay, let's be productive with this. And he had two circles. So the first circle were all of these people that were facing outwards in a receiving manner, and the outside circle were in a sharing space. So they were facing the people, and literally the outside circle was just kind of rotating around and sharing this energy back. And we got to experience both positions, both being the receiver as well as the sharer. And I remember getting to the actual host of the event, the basic shaman course. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. So I approached him after, when the class had ended. I said, I felt something. Is it okay if I share with you what I felt for yourself? And he said, yeah, go ahead. And I said, well, I really felt there's something going on with your kidneys. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something energetically going on with your kidneys. And he said, okay, thank you. And basically we walked away, right? So he at the end of the class the next day, he goes, he pulls me aside and he goes, you know what? You really startled me. You really startled me that you said something about my kidneys, because I used to have mega kidney issues and almost got to the point where he thought he was going to need a kidney transplant a number of years before that, and had worked very diligently to bring his health up to par so that that didn't have to happen. And he had been having these little nigglings of something going on in recent days leading up to this shaman course. And I had brought that home and confirmed it for him. And he was going to, in that week, make an appointment with his doctor. So paying attention to those bits and pieces, that's that physical thing. That's another one of those empaths as well. uh, yeah. So that's that physical, you're where you can be energized by someone's well-being, or you're taken back by somebody's feelings of emotions and that, right? And again, that's what I mean by everybody's connected in with that. So number two, so the first one is the physical empath. Number two is the emotional empath. That's when you are able to pick up emotions of somebody, and you could actually be exhausted by others' emotions. And that's where that wedding, funerals, and these type of things happen. You know, being connected with a family when they have a new child, all sorts of things. So who here has really felt that emotional stuff? Yeah. Yeah. And you'll notice that some of us feel almost all of these, and some of us might only feel one or two, and that's okay. If you'll really find that some of these are really like, holy cow, I didn't realize there was, first of all, this type of empath. And then secondly, that you are possibly that type of empath. And if you're all of them, that's fine. Is again, learning coping skills. And if you're one of them, then that's fine too, right? Yeah. And Simone just said sometimes it's enough just having neighbors. It's just, yeah, recognizing that energy. And that's so true. Like I connect in with my neighbors around here as well. And oh my gosh, you guys. Holy cow. So I didn't realize I was going to bring this up. That just flew in because what you said, Simone. I'm not sure if I want to thank you or curse you right now. So I am majorly emotionally attached to Jasper National Park because of the fires that have happened here. And it's like literally for you that are metric, it's only 80 kilometers away and it's only 50 miles away for you who are standard. And I was born and raised in Jasper, and I keep getting bombarded by all of this energy. And I've actually gone on trips away from my town so that I can give my body a break, because you can only protect yourself to such an extent where it all obviously becomes overwhelming, right? And literally just 2 days ago, I was in the grocery store and I saw two gentlemen. One, and actually both guys I worked with on the railway. I used to be a conductor and a freightman on freight trains, which is kind of an out of the norm type of job. But having said that, I stopped and had a chat with them, and the one guy was just like, I can't even go into that side of town. I can't even drive over in that direction. I can't. So he hasn't even been over to that side. And the other guy is so angry. He is so very, very angry. And he's like, my house is okay. And then that other side of town is like Beirut. It's just so much devastation. And I carried on our conversation, and then I asked if they were open to a hug. And so I hugged both of them, and then I left and I cried all the way home because of their energy and just really recognizing the anger. And I don't usually accept people's emotional baggage, but sometimes it tags us, it catches us unawares. And that emotional release was not only for myself, but also for him. So again, just really recognizing how you're being affected by those emotional pieces from people. Number 3 is the intuitive empath. This is somebody who can sense the unspoken in terms of what is going on, often receives messages in threes, plants, and animal communication, and others' emotions. So sometimes you'll hear somebody say, I knew it, or I know this is going to happen, right? And that's because that intuitive energy is connecting. And I know with some certainty that I had, like let me finish that sentence. I have intuitive empathic abilities for sure. And we actually have a TV show, an old TV show in North America, and I'm sure it's been streamed to other places. MASH, Radar, his intuitiveness, like that's an intuitive person right there, right? At least they designed that character to be intuitive, right? So it's that awareness of things that are happening, sometimes before they happen, and sometimes while they're happening, but it's that intuitive awareness. I know with myself, I was at an event with a best friend, and her daughter was playing an instrument. Anyway, at the end of this, I walked over to my best friend and I said, hey, I'm just getting this vitamin K. I'm supposed to tell you something about vitamin K. And she's like, okay, whatever. Again, usually people just, take it with a grain of salt and walk away. And then they go home and they do their research. Well, she phoned me later that day and she goes, wow, it's actually, she has RA, and that's rheumatoid arthritis. And she had neglected to be on time with her medicines, and in fact had not had them for a couple days. And so her body had been, putting out these feelers so somebody would pay attention. And that's that intuitive hit, right? And paying attention to it. Number 4, we've got, first of all, number 1, physical empath. Number 2 is the emotional empath. Number 3 is the intuitive empath. And before I tell you number 4, we're just approaching the hour, and I'm actually going to invite you to turn off your camera for just a moment and stand up and shake your willies out. Okay? So stand up and shake your willies out. Shake up the energy. Give yourself a minute to just be and flow and actually start to feel your body shift into the frequency that you're feeling. Maybe your hips are doing a figure 8, that infinity sign. Taking some breaths. Continuing on, continue to do that movement, feel the flow, and I'm going to be quiet for a moment. And coming back into this space, sitting down, have a drink. Thank you, everybody, for playing along. That feels a little bit better, doesn't it? Okay, so I'm going to go on to the dream empath. This is somebody who receives intuitive information in dreams and can help interpret their own and other dream meanings by reading between the lines and recognizing the signs. I will read these all again at the end and provide you guys with a piece here so you can have these a little bit more easily accessible. Okay, so does anybody have, I have my own examples of each of these. So I actually want to ask one of you guys, do one of you guys have an example of a dream? A dream into in that connecting in? Go ahead, Mary.
Well, I don't know if it's the same thing, but remember I told you about the dream I had where my mom came to me in a dream about 6 months after she passed. And she gave me this massive big hug. And even though I'm out on my bike, I could actually physically feel the hug when I remembered the dream. And when I did a painting on it, then I got the inspiration to create my next card deck called I Dreamed a Dream. Would that be relevant?
I would say that is, yes. Yeah. Because it started a series of things too, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, that I didn't realize was going to happen. Yeah.
Very, very powerful. Thanks for sharing that, Marion. Does anybody else have one that they're aware of? I will share mine then. So I remember waking up, and it was a startled awake because what I had dreamed was that my son and I, he was very young at the time. I think he was probably 4 years old. My son and I had been walking down this lane, and he was walking up on this berm, on this higher kind of thing. And he actually fell through it. And the dream was a little bit longer and convoluted than that. But the gist of it is we were walking, he was walking up above me, and then he fell through. And in that moment that he fell through, I woke up and I went, oh my God, I'm pregnant. It doesn't sound like they go hand in hand at all, but what had happened is I had lost my son as the only child. And it was so wild how I connected those so fast and so rapidly. Does that always happen when you're having intuitive dreams? Like those dreams where no, not at all. I had a dream back in gosh, I think it was 17 or 18, 2017 or 18. And believe me, when I woke up, I had no idea what it meant. And I actually wrote out the dream, and there was like 3 or 4 or 5 pages of writing. It was a very lengthy dream. And as I started to write it out, I started to realize something really big. It was that I wasn't seeing myself. It was such a powerful, powerful dream. And that's why when Marion asked that question, was that dream, you know, part of what's going on? And yes, very much so, because we don't necessarily know what the answer is in that moment. But oftentimes, if we start to look a little bit more closely, we can start to figure that out. Okay. So number 5, that's the plant empath, plant. And that's somebody who feels the needs of plants and can connect with the essence of them. So oftentimes, it's just like I use Rescue Remedy. It's a Bach remedy, but people make different oils, if you will, and stuff, and because those are the essence, and they can speak with the essences of these and connect in a way that is very, very powerful. And it's that walking through the living room and going, oh dear, I've got to go check that plant. That's you feeling the energy of the plant, having a need for something, whether it's you just going over and talking to the plant or feeling the dirt to see if it needs water, right? That is a natural plant empath piece. Okay. Who's done that before? Walked over and yeah, exactly. um, and then the next one, number 6, is the earth empath. And that's when you can relate to what is happening on a grander scale with Mother Earth and the universe. So you may be in awareness of landslides or earthquakes, storms, this type of thing. You're just really kind of connected in with that energy of knowing that there's something bigger going on somewhere in the around the earth. Okay. Number 7 is the animal empath. And that's someone who usually has a special connection with animals, may feel their needs and be able to communicate with them, and may even be a vegan. And now that vegan part of it may or may not be true. I know I'm definitely connecting with animals and birds and stuff, but I'm not a vegan. I'll eat a chicken, no problem. I'll eat a fish, no problem. And so how are you guys feeling with these so far? Those are the first 7. The first 7. Yeah. All 7. Yeah, exactly. There is a number 8, and this is the one that came up post-COVID. This one really came online. It was really, really interesting. And what this one is actually the world empath. So we have that earth empath that actually can feel things that are happening with the planet per se, the ground, the trees, what have you. But the world empath is actually affected by the human reaction to events going on around them. You have a question or you want to comment, or that, hey, that's you, Simone. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's me because I notice when something is going on Earth, I just need to go out because I made my apartment a safe zone. Otherwise, I would have constantly stuff from everyone else. And when I go out, and I can feel when something's going on, and if it's too hard for me, I don't go out. You can feel it what actually is going on Earth. You don't need any news, TV, whatever. You just know
Exactly.
it's then.
Yeah. 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 Thank you for sharing that. You definitely put to words the real basis of this. Really appreciate that, Simone. Yeah. I really noticed that in a bunch of areas going on walks during COVID, that people were, people weren't necessarily gathering in restaurants and stuff, but maybe family units were going for walks on trails, and you could feel the energy on that trail of their like, it's almost like being bombarded with their thoughts, right? So yeah, that world empath one is now one that's come online. So yeah, we're just kind of talking about all the different empaths. I'm going to rattle my way through these again. So if you've want to take another bit of a note on there because you didn't catch all of it. Number 1 was the physical empath. And that's when you can feel the physical pain in somebody's body. Like if somebody has a headache and you feel it too, or you're energized by someone else's well-being. Number 2 is the emotional empath. That's when you have the ability to pick up emotions of somebody. And you can be exhausted by their emotions. I want to say something about that emotional one. I remember going to a funeral. One of my friends at the time, wow, yeah. She lost her young adult, so I'm, just graduated, 19 years old maybe, to fentanyl. Okay. And that was an extremely difficult funeral to go to. She was emotionally distraught, and all I could think of is being able to help her, being able to help her. And so I took on all kinds of her energy. Being the emotional empath, I could feel her energy, so I chose to take it on. It did me no good at all to do that. It was very harmful to myself because of, feeling those emotions that I wasn't technically, I don't want to use the word supposed to feel, but that really wasn't in my cards necessarily to step into that. But also too, I really took away from her own experience. And there's a reason why we're here having our own experiences. We've set that up. In essence, we've set that up that we're coming here to learn from our experiences, right? And so I prolonged her experience. Like once I've taken that emotions from her, I can't necessarily shove them all back at her. It doesn't work that way, right? But it was really recognizing after the fact that I don't need to take on other people's energy. And we're going to talk about what to do with regards to that after I walk through all of these empathic parts again. So again, the physical empath, the emotional empath. Then number 3 was the intuitive empath, the person that can sense the unspoken in terms of what is going on, often receive messages in threes, animal and plant communication, and others' emotions. It's that I knew it. I know, I could just feel this. I know that this is what's happening, right? Number 4 is the dream empaths. This is receiving intuitive information in dreams, and then being able to help interpret your own and others' dreams by reading between the lines and recognizing the signs. And that between the lines and recognizing the signs, I think it really becomes clear that sometimes those signs aren't so really obvious. We just are being asked to, what does that mean for us? And I'll explain more about that in a moment. So number 5 is that plant empath, feels the needs of plants and can connect with the essence of the plant. I love going on bike rides and putting my hands on trees. They ground me, especially when I'm having a difficult ride. I'll actually go over and connect with the tree, put my hands with the tree. I love looking out my window and being very connected with the trees around me. I apologize to trees and plants when I do something to them. And thank them as well. The other thing is number 6, the earth empath. This is somebody who can relate to what's happening on a grander scale with Mother Earth and the universe. Number 7 is the animal empath. Usually has a special connection with animals, may feel their needs and be able to communicate with them, and may even be a vegan. And number 8 is the world empath. That's affected by human reactions to events going on around them. So if you were to list 1 through 8 and you really recognize the one, especially, like, not, and when I say the one, I mean, I don't mean number 1. I mean, one of those is something that is you especially. Write down that one that really stands up very powerfully in the chat. while I answer Marion's question or listen to her comment. Go ahead, Marion.
Just based on, this is very interesting because, it's new to me, but how you and I connected, would that be emotional or intuitive, or which avenue would our connection have come through?
Wow, that's a really great question. So in essence, just so everybody knows what's going on here, Marion lives in a completely different continent than I do. She's never heard of me at all. And one day she felt drawn to look up my name specifically in her phone. She had never heard my name before, and yet she felt drawn to look up my name. And so long story short is a short time after that, we ended up being in an event together. So I love your question. And what do you guys think of that? I'm just sitting here kind of in the grand scheme of all of this, and I'd have to explore that a little bit, Marion.
Well, what I was thinking was, because as you're speaking, when somebody's name drops into my head, and that happens 2 or 3 times, I say to myself, okay, I'm meant to ring them. So that's why I picked up the phone to ring you, because that's happened a few times. That lady that I contacted, and I hadn't spoken to her in 7 years, and she said to me, well, Marion, why did you ring me just now? Do you know I've been diagnosed with breast cancer? And I said, oh, Jane, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. But that's the sort of thing I'm talking about, that I get the message, and
That's intuitive.
I will always act on the inspiration. I will never now turn my back on the inspiration. I'll always act on it. So just when you read out these 8, I just wondered, was it an emotional or intuitive?
I believe the one for you and I was definitely intuitive. And I believe the emotional one was the one with the woman that, why did you reach out to me now? Because
Yeah.
she's having an emotional moment, like, well, not moment, an emotional experience, right? And so
Yeah.
you're connected with that person on some level. And so that would be the emotional one for sure.
And there's one other thing as you were speaking. I'm just trying to remember the name. I should know the name of the church in Paris, the one that burnt down, the really old one.
Yeah.
Before I was into any of this, before I was into any healing or that, I remember walking into that church because hubby and I were on a trip for our wedding anniversary. I went into the church and I was a quarter of the way in when I had to turn around. I literally, Notre Dame, that's it, thank you very much. I actually literally ran out.
Mm.
The feeling I had was just survival. I need to get out of here fast. Now I would love to go back and just see, because now I'm more spiritually evolved, to see what it was that drove me out. Well, I probably don't need to go back. I could just do it intuitively, but I would love to know why I had that. It was so overwhelming, Sandra. I had to leave so fast.
Yeah. And that is an emotional one. That's the emotional empath. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen, I'm just gonna take you off camera here, and I want to say a little bit about everything that you've said here, Marion. So that's the emotional empath, because you're feeling the stuff that people have left behind. There's a TV show that used to be on in North America that was, I think it was called The Listener. And also too, there was a profiler one, and they could actually feel the energy of things that had happened. And that's what you were feeling when you went into that church, Marion, is all of the things like that church was, a century old or older, whatever, however old that church is. And there is so much baggage in there, so many echoes, if you will, of things that have occurred in there, be it in the name of religion, be it in the name of the Crusaders, whatever it is. Like, there's just so much stuff that has been done around that, that is what you felt. I alluded to my antique store and having to run out the other side. It's because here's like thousands, like probably even maybe hundreds of thousands of little artifacts, like hat pins and cups and saucers and photographs. Like, I could go on, and every one of these is holding somebody's energy of something, right? Like a memory or something. It's those echoes, right? So yeah, it's definitely very much a very powerful connection in with that. I'm not sure if there was something else that needed to come through with that. Yep, that is the emotional one. Go ahead, Simone.
Just what I checked in, it's a combination for me. Well, I feel it. It's emotional because it's like stored everything, but at the same time, this church is built onto a ley line, and that ley line itself is distorted. So it's amplifying everything. So that's why earth and emotional stuff from humans is kind of weaved together. And it's really intense. It's still there.
That is so wild when you said that about the ley line, because I literally felt how, and of course, I don't know that I personally can prove this, but I literally felt how it's not built where they originally thought they would build it. They built it in a slightly different spot. That is so interesting. And again, I don't know that I could, prove that per se. Thank you. Yeah, the earth, the ley lines. Al.
So, you know, I just thought of something which I had not realized, but after you said, I went through them all, and I find that life is kind of mastering those in a way where you pick up that stuff and you don't want it to affect you. You know, you want to manage it. Once you can manage all those different aspects of yourself, uh, it's not just your life changing; it's everybody around you. And I think, and I was thinking, when I see some friends that I haven't seen for a long time, and they're like, "Oh, Al's here, good things are going to happen." They recognize that there's something going on. They don't know what it is, but it's like healing back and forth, right? So, yeah, like the more you work on those aspects of yourself, the better it is for everybody around. I just never thought of it that way. I thought of it that way, but not in terms of empath.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's big, isn't it?
I think so. It's an easy way to explain it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thank you for
for me,
sharing. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. Just give me a second here because I'm just filling into the energy of what you've just said there. It truly does come back around to that awareness of that you're feeling something. And I love this because of what you just said, Al. And I've made this really clear this year, especially, is that I no longer go to places and attempt to fit in. I go as the authentic me as much as I can, and the energy adapts to me. And that's what I hear you're saying. Like same thing. Like there's this one guy that he's always ribbing me on one hand through Facebook, but on the other hand, he absolutely adores that I always show up and I got a big smile on my face and he can feel the energy of me and he just really is totally into that. So I hear exactly what you're saying, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. Your friends are connecting in with that acceptance that you have of yourself. And then they can, right?
and then they can.
They can
Well,
accept themselves.
it helps. Yeah, I mean, it's like all parts of us are connecting when we meet, and anywhere I see for myself pain or sometimes for others, I just would automatically work towards healing it. And over time, it's just automatic. It's automatic. So um, I just can I add something about the world one though?
Yes, please.
I don't. I think the world one is where you feel like you're aware that something happened somewhere in the world, right?
People with people. The earth is something happened in the world with the earth, meaning a fire or an earthquake or something like that. But the world one is where you're actually connecting with humanity or some area of humans per se.
Well, I guess I wrote 7, but I guess I have all 8. Well,
Okay.
I was thinking I don't always know, but there's sometimes I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for putting that to voice. Yeah. So some of you have written down that you are maybe like Simone wrote all 8. Sadie wrote 8. Al wrote 7. He's recognizing that he's actually all 8. It is likely that you are all 8. Each and every one of us are all 8. However, some of those may really stand up and be a lot stronger. And the whole reason I do this empathic part, and we're going to dive in a little bit deeper here with learning how to cope with being an empath. The whole point of my bringing up this empathic part is that it's likely that one of these things might be bigger than another piece. Okay. So when you look at my trajectory of the inner child, the higher self, the inner dragon, and that these little bits and pieces start to fall into place with how I'm getting my information as well. Also too, like why some people become animal communicators, why some people become herbologists or work with plants and they have, say, gardening skills. Like that's that empath pieces that are really coming up. Okay. So whether you have one of these, whether you have 2 or 3, whether you have all 8, it's just really, I wanted to bring them home to you so that you understand how you're being affected by everything that is around you. Okay. Let's dive into how to help yourself. Some self-care tips. Okay. So I've got about 13 tips written down here. In fact, 14 different tips written down here. So I'm going to just kind of rattle my way through these. First of all, does anybody need me to go through the 8 empaths again? You can catch the replay. I'll post it again. Maybe that's what I could do is I'll just grab them right now and put them in the chat. Unsure if you are able to capture the chat, but I'll put them in the chat so you've got them. Oh, and of course it's 28 words too much. Oh, what's a one sentence I can erase here? Okay, bear with me. I'm going to erase that word, that sentence. There we go. Okay. It's in there. Hopefully you can grab it. If you can't grab it, what you do is you click on those 3 dots and it might say copy there, or it might say save your notes, whatever the case is. Okay, you can grab them that way. So I just wanted to share that with you. So I'm now going to go into the 14 different self-care things. You can take what you like of this, use whatever pieces you like of this, or you can add more to this. I'll definitely open the room to suggestions after I rattle through these 14 that I have. Did anybody have any questions about the empaths, first of all? Just to wind that up. We're good? Okay. So starting with number 1, I said this at the beginning, is ask yourself if it is yours. So whatever energy you're feeling, ask if it's yours. If you separate from the feeling, does it decrease? So what I mean by separating from the feeling, does it decrease is, I remember, like I just alluded to, on mountain biking paths or whatever, people are out walking during COVID, right? And I remember feeling just so absolutely raunchy. I felt so horrible. And during that ride, and I thought to myself, okay, first of all, is that mine? I just want to take a step back. And you'll hear me using that type of phrasing, stepping back or stepping in. And it's a choice that I'm doing. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that I'm standing up and I'm making a physical movement. I'm doing this all energetically, okay? And that's really recognize the things that I'm saying, because this is your PowerPoints that you guys can all do as well. I don't have the market on this. We all can do this. Okay. So I took an energetic step back from the energy to see, first of all, if it was mine, because if it was mine, it would have just come with me. Right. And I recognize in that moment that it wasn't mine. It was all these people who were out there terrified about COVID and what was going on. Right. So when I say that, ask if it's yours, and if you separate from the feeling, does it decrease? Once you do that, if it's not yours, then create a bubble around yourself. And oftentimes I really feel energetically about the pink bubble per se, and that pink is that rose quartz and really connecting with your heart energy. But your bubble can be truly any color. It can even be black. It can even be no color at all. But that bubble is so powerful because it creates this beautiful barrier of you in this beautiful energy of being in that bubble, and having this resistance to the things that you don't need to feel. Thank you, guys. Okay, so who here's heard the bubble before? Yeah, bubble's a really common one, right? Okay, so number 2 is breathing and ask to return to sender, and then repeat as needed. So let's just take a moment right now and reach out and feel if you are feeling somebody else's energy. I know I am, just because of the circumstances close to my town here. So I'm reaching out, taking a breath, repeating to send it back, whatever that looks like, or recycle it. And allow your body to relax into that letting go of somebody else's emotions or feelings. Thank you. I want to say something really important to this. It's so interesting because some people, and you may be one of them, so that's why this is coming up, feel that they can't necessarily recycle this material, this energy, back to Mother Earth or into the universe. For one, there is this absolutely beautiful, incredible picture that I've seen before AI was created, I'll tell you that. And this picture is of a cave in Mexico. And it's not the only cave in the world. I imagine that there are many that are similar to this. And this cave is filled with selenite wands. Now, when I say selenite wands, picture, if you will, that there's this wand and that the human being standing on it is only about an inch high. That's how big this selenite wands are. Okay. And they're at all different kinds of angles. Selenite is a natural cleansing crystal. It doesn't need to see the moonlight to be cleansed itself. It is just a natural cleansing crystal. So when we're recycling this energy back to Earth, it is being naturally regenerated and brought back out in a more powerful manner for the highest good, for the most benevolent reasons, and the greatest good of all. Okay. And yeah, Sadie said she transmits it back to source for healing. Exactly. Yeah, very, very powerful. So number 1 was asking if it's yours, creating the bubble. Number 2 is breathing and asking to turn to sender or recycling. And I'm also going to write send to source. Thank you for that. Number 3 is actually using EFT tapping. That EFT tapping, wherever it comes into play, is so very, very powerful. I know, using again that Jasper incident as an example, that first 2 weeks was, holy cow, situation critical with that, we're talking thousands of people, not just from that town, but this ripple effect that were affected because of the fires in Jasper. And I know that I had a woman who's in my community reach out to me. She lives in Greece, and she offered to do an EFT tapping circle. We did actually 4 calls and invited people to come in on that. And it was extremely powerful to be able to let go of the anger, to witness each of these emotions that were coming up with that. So that EFT tapping is so very, very powerful. Ooh, Simone, I'm going to have to explore that. She wrote, crystals doesn't feel like part of Earth or any other type, and meaning that that's not, crystals may not be an empathic piece, or that in the list of 8, they're not in there. It might be a 9th empathic type. Very well could be. Thank you for sharing that. So 1 was ask with yours, create a bubble. 2 was breathe, set its source. 3 was EFT tapping. 4 is journaling, morning pages, writing things out. Writing things out. I had a very, very devastating experience in 2017 where my daughter phoned and I couldn't even understand her on the phone. There was no understanding her at all. And then the paramedic got on the phone. And the paramedic told me that my daughter had come home to find her best friend had hung himself in their home. And I was connected in, first of all, with my own emotions of this. I was connected in with the beautiful Wyatt's emotions. He was the soul that chose that path. And then 2, I was also connected in with my daughter's emotions. And I was literally beside myself. I had no idea what to do. There was no stopping and going, oh, is this mine? Da, da, da. Should I put a bubble around myself? There was none of that. I was so deep in it. And so I reached out to somebody who was in a totally different time zone because of the time that this happened today. And she's like, journal. You've got morning pages, journal. And so I went bleh into the morning pages. And literally for the next month, I literally tracked my emotions, my feelings, and put it to voice on paper, I was experiencing through that whole thing, rather than keeping that all tied up inside of me and letting it fester. So those morning pages, that journaling is so very, very powerful for helping you to release whatever it is that you're going through, okay? Number 5, say no. Just say no to the feelings. I release all the emotions and energy that belong to others. Just saying no, right? That may sound very familiar, that, we have a choice. And again, it's that recognizing that it's very simple. Okay. And when I say recognizing that it's very simple, if you're in the middle of some chaotic kind of energy and you don't like it, then go, no. Stop and take a breath. Say no. Exactly. No is a complete sentence and we can use it. Thank you, Marion. Boom. I wish I could just share that across the screen. Very powerful. Yeah, no is a complete sentence, right? So number 6 is an energy transfer between eyes and touch. Less contact with people, meaning that some people don't like getting hugs. And there's all kinds of reasons for that, right? But sometimes just sitting with somebody, I don't know if you guys know, I'm not sure if I've got his name right, but there's this guy, I think his name is Brazo or something like that. And he has an absolutely incredible experience where he comes on and he literally just looks into the camera for, I think it's like 7 minutes or something like that, a very short transmission. And I'm telling you, the power of that transmission is incredible. And sometimes that's what it takes is us not necessarily touching people, but just being in contact and eye contact. I mean, who hasn't looked at somebody across the room and caught their eye and smiled, right? Or really shared an emotion, right? Number 7 is showering or bathing. I've also got standing in the rain or a waterfall. Showering or bathing, standing in the rain or a waterfall. Number 8 is nurturing your needs. Take a walk, distract your mind. That's so powerful, just doing something as simple as that, right? Going out for a walk. Number 9 is practice earthing, like that's that bare feet on the ground, hugging a tree. Number 10, energy cord lengthening or cutting or loosen, a disengaging of the roots from the ground. So I'm going to explain that one a little bit further. So it's energy cord lengthening, cutting or loosening, or disengaging the roots from the ground, from the cord, not necessarily the ground. Okay. So sometimes we're very emotionally connected with somebody. And this could even be an event. Thank you, guys. But let's go with the somebody. And then if it's an event, you will know now what to do with this. Okay. So if you're energetically and emotionally really super connected with somebody, and it's somebody that you care about, then loosening that cord is way easier than necessarily cutting it. You don't necessarily want to cut that cord, you just want to loosen that cord. And the way to do that is just really recognize, again, you have the power, and keeping it simple. It's not like you have to go into all this hoopla and ceremony and that. It's just imagining that this cord is being lengthened. And it's providing this flexibility, this flow, this motion where you're not stuck to each other. You know, we often hear about the apron cords, right? That are as a child, we're really connected to the apron cords. We're always holding on to the apron cords of our parent, right? So it's that letting that apron cord be really, really long instead, right? Okay, I didn't know I was going to go there. Thank you. So an example of this is, I love my mom. My God, my mom's just in my mind. Yes, I've had issues with my mom, but I love my mom. I love my mom so much. And last year was the last time, she's alive still, but last year was the last time that I could have conversations, not necessarily like this, but have conversations, period, with her. Meaning that I could phone and talk to her and she would remember the call, and then she'd call me back or whatever. My mom's mind is no longer there. Her short-term memory is entirely gone. And so I felt very empowered by letting that cord be looser, so that instead of keeping those emotions of her really close, that emotions of mine of being really, oh my God, I'm so horrified that this has happened, I've allowed those cords to loosen a bit. And she's just in this beautiful energy. Like I can feel this beautiful energy of her floating out there, and very connected still. And I was having this thought last night even about, we often think that we're doing things for other people, but the reality is that we're actually doing it for ourselves. So if I phone her, even with the knowledge that she won't remember I phoned the moment she hangs up that phone, I'm still phoning because I wanted to talk to her, right? And I hope you're understanding what I'm saying with regards to the emotions here, and that I'm okay with letting her just be in that beautiful flow out there, rather than me carrying those emotions of no longer having my mom. I did a lot of grieving last year over that, and being in that grieving is not a fun place to be in when you choose to be in it on a more permanent basis. So it allowed me the room to enjoy my life more on a daily basis. I hope you guys are understanding that. Does anybody else have an example of loosening cords or cutting cords that they'd like to share?
Yeah, I have a small one there. Last week I was working on somebody who, again, doing a muscle balance with them, and a couple of muscles wouldn't balance. So I got the intuition that it was to do with another family member. And like that, I got her we needed to cut the cords. So I just did the very simple cut the cords. And as soon as she did that, all the muscles balanced, you know. So yeah. And the wonderful thing, which has never happened before, it's a family member. So I got a phone call a few days later to say, thank you so, so much. I feel incredible. My pain is gone. And I sat in the theater and looked at this show that she got tickets to, and it was in comfort, and she enjoyed it. And she just said, thank you so much. Normally family don't thank me, you know. So
Love
that's
that.
which was this last Friday. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That was very, very powerful. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and we don't have to necessarily cut the cords, and we don't necessarily have to loosen the cords. Go by what you energetically are feeling at the moment. I mean, I was speaking with one person, and they didn't feel comfortable having that bubble floating near them. And they wanted to actually kick their bubble way out into the middle of the galaxies, not even probably this universe, but way out into the middle of the galaxies, right? So it's just trust your own judgment, keep it simple, okay? And I know that this could be expanded on in so many different ways. So know that this is just kind of touching base with this. And I do want to say that, you know, I will be talking more later on about how to work with me more, or I have a 6-week offer that I want to share with you guys later that's about really kind of digging into some of this a little bit more. So number 11 is carrying a crystal. Right, carrying a crystal around. So you could now I'm gonna suggest that you don't actually carry selenite around unless it has been what's the word I'm looking for? I have a beautiful piece of selenite that is completely smooth, and it's really quite safe. Selenite in its raw form splinters, so you don't want to carry raw selenite in your pocket or in your bra or something like that, or you're in your sock, whatever the case is, right? But whatever the crystal is, carrying it around with you will really be very helpful. And it's allow yourself to energetically connect with that crystal. And I find it interesting that I said that, because you may not actually physically have a crystal to carry around. However, you can energetically connect with the crystal and carry it around. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that. Yeah, and Al, I saw what you wrote there about you usually have selenite throughout your house. For me, it's black obsidian to ground. I really find that I have to ground myself a lot. No, I want to rephrase that. I walk around unaware that I need to ground myself, so I put black obsidian around so that I am grounded. That's how I want to word that. And I like what you just said, that it's an angel crystal to me. I love the energy of that. Yeah. Where was I going with that? There was something I wanted to say. I can't remember now. Does anybody have an experience that they'd like to share about a crystal?
Well, not only one, because I'm working with crystals, they can be very chatty. That's why I said there is enough coming on. What I notice is, because, you know, with people using more Wi-Fi and stuff, in this house, it got really more intense. And I looked into crystals and chose intuitively barite. And I keep it, you know, by the router and stuff, and it really helped. So you have, it's just going with the intuition, because crystals are growing too. They change what they're capable to do. So there is, and still what's the stuff in the old books mostly well fits, but it's like they are expanding, upgrading. And well, obsidian is my birthstone, you can say, in the Nahual stuff. So I have various kinds. I'm surrounded, constantly surrounded by crystals. It's really normal for me. It's like family. It's the same with plants. And it's really keeping your space well clean. What we need to do as an empath is really setting up a clear, safe space where we feel at home, comfortable, despite people being around. You know, you can't get to be an hermit just because it's too much. It's really finding the solution for ourselves that fits for us, and because we are also different And how strong that gift are is different. That's why we need to really find maybe a combination of what fits. What I realized that, with a bubble, I did that. Honestly, for me, it didn't do anything. It didn't work at all. And only a combination, it's not even a bubble with, you can say ropes of compassion, it's called. That helps keeping me in my own energy, and at the same time have an energy kind of like a buffer that clears my own stuff and clears the stuff of other people if they want to. Because what we forget is part of, even if you staff, to keep us in a safe space, as long as we have still uncleared stuff in ourselves, which we can relate to. It's kind of like an open door where stuff can come in because it connects to our own stuff that wants to be clear, to be healed. And the moment you clear that, it's like you close the door and it doesn't come that easily in anymore. That's what I noticed.
Yeah. There are so much goodies in what you just said. So many goodies there. One of the things that I want to say about crystals, which may be connected to what we're talking about or may not be, but that every single crystal has a life to it, I guess, for lack of a better word, meaning that it has a crystal guide in it, if you will, or it has a crystal entity in it, and you can connect in with that crystal. And it's not necessarily all of the rose quartz in the world. Your crystal has something. And in fact, and this again could go off on a tangent, and I'm choosing not to go there, but crystals can also have attachments of people to it. And I think I might have shared that with one of you about a jade piece that I'd given my son at some point. But yeah, the crystal energy is really, really interesting. Yeah, and a diva too, exactly. Very much. People and beings, exactly. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so number 12 is like literally taking a break from the news, being online or other areas. That's very, very powerful. And I love that because we actually spoke about, how these empaths actually connect us in so that we don't actually have to watch the news, right? And it's so comical listening to people who think they need to be, or we need to be watching the news. And I'm like, I don't need to watch the news. I really don't. There are things that I connect in with in different ways. So very powerful. Number 13 was learn to overflow with energy. So I love this one. So imagine, if you will, and let's just take a moment here to close our eyes, feeling this beautiful connection with source, but from your feet, from the soles of your feet, from your earth star beneath your feet. Feel this beautiful energy coming up through your feet. Feel how it's rising up through your legs, through your knees, through your hips, through your pelvis, allowing yourself to move and get comfortable in that. Feel how it's coming up through your body, whether it's through the bones or whether it's through soft tissue, through your belly, up into your heart, your rib cage. Taking a breath into that, feeling it flowing through your shoulders, arms, and hands, also through your neck, through your head. And I liken this to those chocolate fountains or a water fountain. I like imagining chocolate fountains versus water fountains. But imagine that you are like that chocolate fountain or a water fountain, and it's just flowing out of the crown, and it's just flowing over you. It's flowing from your fingertips. It's flowing even maybe from your toes, just flowing all through and out of you. And notice I said through, so you're not taking your personal energy that's yours inside of you and giving it away. What you're doing is you're drawing it from source, from Mother Earth in this case, and you're allowing this beautiful energy to flow out of you, through you, and then feel it in this room with all of us. Feel the magic of all of this beautiful, supportive, loving energy flowing amongst all of us. And now feeling that going into the rooms that we're physically in, the locations that we're physically in, be it the house or apartment, trailer, whatever it is. Just feeling this beautiful flow through you, just rippling out. It's going into the land all around you. How it's going around to your family members, your acquaintances, their homes, their land. And it's going further and further all around the world. And into the universe, into the galaxy. And this beautiful energy just flowing. And the reality is that I can honestly just end the class right here and us sit in this energy for the next 6 hours. However, I'm inviting you to come back to this space, and thank you for doing that. Yeah, I could get just caught up in that. And then the last one was music, prayer, and asking your guides for help. Yeah. Very, very, we have so many tools out there. The thing is remembering to do one of these things or a combination of those things. And I do really want to say to you too, that even if you don't remember in the moment, whenever you do remember, whether it's hours, whether it's minutes, hours, weeks, months, years later, do it then. Because energy is one thing, and you will positively affect it whenever you acknowledge it and make that step or that choice to do that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Very powerful. So. Yeah, so many really good, powerful things in the chat. One is that, making the choice not to watch TV or, the news. I know for myself, we personally have not had cable in our house, bringing in, basic cable since 2019. I believe it is. So for the last 5 years, we haven't had cable streaming into our house on a consistent basis. Yes, we have the internet, but we don't have cable where we're doing that sitting in front of the TV watching it. And now we get to be very proactive about what we watch. My husband and I make a choice every evening. We come together and we sit and we watch mountain biking shows mostly. We also watch shows that are about some pretty cool camping people, some RV people that we watch. And then myself, I will shift into watching things by myself that are very empowering in my spiritual growth and that. So yeah, we have choices, really, really powerful choices on how we want to do. And I think what Simone wrote at the very end here is extremely important, is accepting that you're an empath instead of thinking that it's a curse to be an empath. We all are an empath. So the sooner we choose to accept that we are, it's just like anything. When you acknowledge you have a pain in your body, that acknowledgement changes how that pain is reacting in your body. Anything, as soon as you acknowledge anything, it starts to shift and change. So acknowledgement, accepting, very, very powerful.